Welcome! Today I'm going to show you how to make a tassel. It's especially helpful for those who are doing one of my patterns. For example, my Halloween pillow pattern that requires 4 tassels, one on each corner of the pillow. So there are a few things you will need. A pair of scissors, sharp, a tapestry needle, a small skein of yarn in the color that you want to create the tassel, and then 2 other pieces of the same color of yarn, one that's approximately 1 yard long and the other that is 12 to 14 inches long. And finally, a piece of something that's good and sturdy. I happen to have this piece of plastic covered instructions for some socks that I like to make. But if you don't have something like this, a piece of cardboard will do, and it will do very nicely. It's for wrapping the yarn to make the tassel. And the dimensions of the piece of cardboard or other stiff device that you want to use simply need to be wide enough this way to handle the number of strands that you want in your tassel, and wide enough in this direction to accommodate the length of the tassel along with the top piece that will be used to secure the yarns to the tassel itself and then to the object you're going to attach the tassel to. So let's begin. I am going to start by threading my approximately 12 to 14 inch piece of yarn through my tapestry needle so that it's at the ready. Right here, ready to go. Then I will begin to unravel my other skein of yarn. And this is about maybe 3.5 to 4 inches across here, and so that's going to work just fine for my purposes today. I begin by holding one piece of the end of the yarn with my left thumb and gently, without pulling and stretching the yarn, wrapping it around this piece of cardboard or other object that I'm using for the dimensions of my tassel. It's important not to pull hard or even tug very strongly at all, even gently, on your yarn here, because if you do, when you cut the tassel, it will no longer be the length that you had planned. So wrap the yarn very, very gently without applying any pressure or pulling the yarn tightly around the object. And for my Halloween pillow, I recommend about 16 times around your piece of cardboard. So we just keep going really gently so that we don't stretch the thread. If you've ever washed your hair and then trimmed part of your hair when it was still wet without realizing that when it dries it's going to shrink up, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you stretch the yarn and then cut it, it will definitely shrink in length. So now that I have approximately 16 wraps around this piece of cardboard, I have a little extra yarn here, which is not a problem. And I'm going to hold that in place. I've gathered all the strands of yarn a little bit together here. With my 12 to 14 inch piece of yarn and my tapestry needle, I will slip my tapestry needle under this side of the lengths of yarn, just enough to pull through. I can then remove the needle, and with the 2 ends of that small piece of yarn, I'm going to tie a knot right there, drawing them together. I've tried to make the tails of this piece of yarn approximately the same length. Now that's going to be the top of the tassel, And with my sharp scissors, I will slide them under this end of the yarn and cut through each strand. You can see they already have shrunken a little bit, and that's when I was trying very cautiously not to put any tension on them. Now I have the beginnings of a tassel with a little extra piece here. We'll trim this all to the same length soon. But now with the knot tied here, you can see that we have this bunch of strands sort of divided in half. I can remove my cardboard, and here we have the beginnings of that tassel. So I will fold it in half, keeping the tails of the yarn that I had used to make the original knot here. Now you can do it holding the strands of yarn in your left hand or in your right hand, either way. I kind of prefer holding it like this and using about the length of my first knuckle on each finger, like this. And then I need my approximately 1 yard length of yarn. With this, I'm going to begin wrapping, holding this here, and I'm going to wrap this quite tightly around the strands. I can work in this little tail by just going over it a couple of times. Now this is where I am pulling on the yarn, and then put this little tail back down. This piece of yarn I'm pulling quite hard on because I want this to be wrapped very, very tightly. And so I'm covering all this up, and I can go around here as many times as I think it's going to require to have a nice secure wrap. When I'm near the end, I will thread my yarn here, and this is where I'm going to secure this piece of yarn by piercing through some of the yarn that I've wrapped very tightly, making sure not to snag any of these. I'll pull it up here. I'll wrap it maybe another half turn to the other side, and again piercing through some of the yarn, coming out at the bottom, pulling that snugly. Maybe one more time here, and finally we'll wrap it another half turn and go back through here. This piece now, this time, since it's the final time, I can push it right into the middle of the other strands and pull this through, pulling it very nice and tight, and release the thread from the needle. Now I have kind of step 2 of a tassel all made. Of course, I want the lengths of each strand to be the same, so this is when I will make sure they're lying fairly flat, and then using my sharp scissors, we'll cut them evenly across the bottom. Sometimes it takes a little extra spot here and there to get them even. You can throw this away, and now you have a tassel. In order to attach it to a pillow or an afghan or something like that, I like to use the tapestry needle again, thread it here, and I like to run it back under this way with the piece of yarn from that side, and then do the opposite with the second tail, so that gives us a little more secure attachment. And now, with these two tails, I can use my needle or a crochet hook to attach this to the object so that I now have a fully made yarn tassel. And of course, if you do more than one, you're going to want to measure when you do that trim so that they're all the same length. Hope you enjoy making tassels. Thanks.